it seemed like with you guys, there were a lot of things. You think of the first game, you had the walk-off home run against Texas A&M, but you think of like the Virginia game where the ball is thrown all over the yard, you guys score the winning run. Did it ever like click to you that it's like, you know what, we just may be destined to do this thing and win this thing all over again?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say more along the lines of the type of guys, the character we had on the team. And I know that can be thrown around a lot and just, kind of rambled, but I really mean that. I'm trying to think of, a bunch of the guys. Jay Brown, for example, he was one of our team captains. He did things the right way. You have guys that if you do things the right way and you're competitive, you don't get those kind of guys. You can ask any coach in the country. You don't get those kind of guys on a team every 3, 4, 5 years. It just doesn't come around. A lot of times coaches worry about the locker room, the captains. If really you're as good as your seniors or your captains. And we had a bunch of guys in that locker room that, one, worked their tail off, and two, were just grinders and good people. I know we like to have fun. We cut up a little bit, but we kind of knew, how to do things the right way. And, really it showed. We would never quit. Tough. We had different kinds of guys on that team. Adrian Morales was the guy who was, he'd want to fight you any second, tough as nails. We have Ross. He'd fight you too, but he'd cut up the other 90% of the time, So we had so many groups of guys and the different kind of people on that team, and it meshed perfectly, And I think that kind of is a testament too of Coach Tanner and him making sure that those captains, he didn't have to say much those 2 years. Coach Tanner didn't have to get on us very much. We'd cut up and stuff, but the captains they controlled that team and made sure everything was in-house and, done the right way.
Absolutely. So that 2011 National Championship Series, it's crazy. You guys are taking on another rival, but this time from your own division in the SEC East, the Florida Gators, who Florida seemed year in and year out to have a ton of talent. It's crazy to me it took them as long as it did for them to win a national title under Kevin O'Sullivan with just some of the talent they had. And some people will like to argue that you guys maybe weren't the better team on paper or didn't have more talent on paper, but overall you turned out to be the better team. What do you say to that? Do you think there's any truth to that? Because I don't think that's giving you guys quite enough credit for what you did.
I don't think that's true. If you look at the roster, they definitely have some guys that were really talented. But we had Jackie Bradley Jr., Christian Walker, Michael Ross. I mean, it's tough to kind of argue that, or on the other side. But they definitely were talented. If you look going back, we were kind of the scrappy group, but we were definitely talented. I mean, it's kind of that's tough to really answer, but they were really talented. I mean, they had guys. Zanino was. Well, he's a Golden Spikes winner, something like that. And they had Paco Rodriguez, Hudson Randall. I mean, they had arms for days. But we were. I mean, team wise, you weren't going to find a better team. I mean, you just can't find a better team than I feel like we were. But they definitely had talent. They definitely had talent for sure.
Absolutely. So I want to jump to game one of that national championship series against Florida. Bottom of the ninth, Florida has the bases loaded. There's one out in the inning, I believe. Yeah, one out in the inning, bases loaded. John Taylor is on the mound. You make a play. I'm not going to lie, Scott, I still don't know how you made the play. You make a play, a diving play up the middle, throw, and I think people sometimes forget this, but Robert Berry at catcher makes a fantastic pick at home plate. And you guys, you talked about it a little bit earlier, but you guys really showed kind of that clutch gene as a team. You guys never let the moment get too big. There were never any nerves in that moment, at least from watching on TV. You're like, this team still believes 100%. They're going to win. It does not matter the situation. But just talk about being in that situation. What's going through your mind when you're laying out, diving up the middle, and seeing Robert Berry make this incredible pick, and then you go back. I'm sure you've seen the replay. That ball is literally like a couple inches from hitting Robert Berry's mask, and the game is over, and it's a completely different story. But just talk about kind of that play, and you can kind of expand on that game if you want as well, because that was one of the crazier college baseball games I think any of us have ever seen.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, that was unbelievable. I mean, I'll never forget when they got bases loaded. I just went up to John Taylor, and we just said a couple things. I think we didn't even talk about, hey, come on, John, you got this. It was more like, hey, man, here you go, double down right here, just make a pitch, just get out of this. Something, just nothing too serious. But I remember the pitch before when the ball came to me. Obviously as an infielder, you're thinking the ball's coming to you. And I always kind of, that's how I practiced and that's how I played. But I want to say it was 0-2 count. I could be wrong, I don't know what the count was to the guy, but I remember shifting a little bit over to the middle, up the middle, just a little bit, because I was looking at Walker and he was a little bit shaded over a little bit to second base, a little more than usual, I feel like. So I took about a step, maybe step and a half up the middle. And when he hit the ball, I'll never forget the spin I saw on the ball. It was more of a top spin ground ball. It wasn't a normal, staying on the ground, normal ground ball. So right before I dove, I could tell that this ball was top spinned, and that I needed to kind of, when I dove, not just dive straight out, arm straight out, and just, going for the ball. I had to kind of arch my glove a little bit and give with it as I was diving, because I knew, as I dive, I'm not just going to be diving and the ball's going in. I've got to, actually when I dive, I've got to kind of give with it. So, luckily it went my glove. That was the first part. Second part, I get up, and right when I get up, my peripheral vision, I see a guy at least halfway down the line. And there's no time to be sitting there, thinking how good how good of a play you just made. So I had to get rid of it. And, right when I get rid of it, I'll never forget, if you had a microphone on me, you would hear the word shit right when I throw it, because I let it go and I said shit. And right when I let it go, man, I was just like, Barry, pick me up one time. And, man, he made one of the best picks you'll ever see from a catcher. And man, the fortunate enough part, didn't hit his mask. And a pretty funny story, I was Barry's official visit host. So I think that's pretty cool that, when Barry was deciding where to go, that, I was the one walking him around. So I like to think that, man, that's pretty cool that, I was his host and he picked me up, and I guess, I picked him up.
Absolutely. So it's actually funny. So the bases are still loaded in that scenario, one out. John Taylor gets another little grounder, double play gets another ground ball, double play for you guys. You get out of it. I have to imagine at that point, I mean, adrenaline's rushing. You guys are going crazy. I mean, it's like there's no way we lose this game now. Fast forward to the bottom of the 10th inning, and I definitely want to get your take on this because you mentioned Forrest Kumis earlier. He's actually a good buddy of mine, and he started that game against Florida, but he always tells me the story. He said he'd never forget that, the bottom of the 10th, 2 outs. Florida's got guys on first and second. And I forget who was at the plate, but they hit a line drive over to left field, and Jake Williams is in the left field. And he always told me, he was like, when that ball was hit, I'll be honest, I put my head in my hands, because he was like, I'll be honest, Jake Williams, and he'll tell you, didn't have the greatest arm in the world. And he said that throw that he made was one of the most unbelievable plays he's ever seen on a baseball field. Just talk about that whole situation unraveling when that ball was hit. I mean, did you think the game was over? And then that throw from Jake Williams, I mean, what do you remember about that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, obviously everybody knew Jake's arm wasn't that great, but I played with Jake growing up in travel ball and our Upstate Mavericks team. But I mean, Jake was a stud. I mean, Jake went to Wofford out of high school, and played there and hit like, I want to say like 400 something. But so no, Jake was a stud, but his arm just wasn't that great. But so Jake was Jake was an athlete. Jake was a gamer, you know. So, you know, obviously you can't think he's going to throw that guy out. But when he hit the ball, you're just like, well, here we go. This is it. Jake, it's either you or nothing, buddy. And, man, he made an unbelievable throw. And Barry put an awesome tag on him and just stuck his nose in there and tagged him. And after that, you're like, okay, we're winning this game. There's no way we're losing this game. And I remember Steven Garcia, he was out there, and I think we saw him when we got back to the hotel, and he was like, man, I just saw those guys, or I think he was at his hotel, or I can't remember, but he saw the whole team walking in the hotel or something, and he was like, dude, they're done. Like, you can just tell all their heads are down. They're done. Y'all got them tomorrow. And I was like, yes, sir, we're going to. But, I mean, it was awesome, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was going to say, in that game, obviously we know how it played out. Christian Walker gets on. It's crazy. You guys call the hit and run. Ball gets thrown away. He goes a second, goes a third. Ball gets thrown in the stands. He scores. Matt Price comes in and shuts the door. Obviously, game two wasn't quite as dramatic. You guys were able to pull away in that one. But I'm just because it's on my mind, Matt Price, you know, he was such a key part of 2010 and 2011. When he came in, I mean, you knew it was game over. Were you ever able to face him in any type of inter squad or anything like that? And just talk about, I mean, just how tough he was to hit. Because, again, I mean, I could argue in those 2 seasons he was probably the best closer in college baseball.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you didn't want to – I mean, Matt Price, I know I faced him a few times in the inter squad, but he the dude was he knew he was the best, you know? I mean, you know, he came out on the mound. I mean, his walkout song, like, it was just Matt Price on the mound, ball game's over. I mean, you got on base, leadoff hitter got on. Well, now it's time to go to work. You know, he didn't miss a spot. I mean, he threw with such conviction. I mean, he was that presence on the mound. Is unbelievable. And to have that kind of guy and that kind of player in the bullpen and to close it out for you, I mean, he was unbelievable. And he was unbelievable coming in. Like, he is a freshman. I want to say, was it his freshman year or sophomore year? He got hurt at the Citadel, and broke a bone in his.
I think it was freshman year. I think it was freshman year.
Yeah. What do you do? I think it was.
I don't remember 100%, but I definitely remember because I remember we North Augusta, we played up at Sumter in the playoffs where he obviously went. I remember seeing him in a cast, but I don't know what he did. But yeah, I remember that specifically. I remember seeing him in the dugout with the cast on. Well,
yeah. I mean, that was while he was playing in South Carolina. I think he got sidelined for.
Yeah, he was back, he was just back visiting, but yeah, he had did it his freshman year, I believe.
Yeah, so that sidelined him for a little bit, but man, Price coming in, he was. You knew he was the man, and this just awesome. This, you know, he was a great guy too. I mean, Price. That's the kind of the guys we had, man. South Carolina, a lot of them are South Carolina boys. Did it the right way and would fight you. And Matt's a freaking stud, you know. But yeah, that was awesome.
Absolutely. So just want to, because I actually said game two wasn't that dramatic. I mean, the final score 5-2, but definitely want to give you your due. Bottom of the 8th inning, you guys had a runner on third base, infield in. You came up with the RBI single, so definitely want to give you the props there on that. But just talk about, obviously, you guys win a second straight national championship. Again, you did exactly what you wanted to do. You close out Rosenblatt, you open up TD Ameritrade and get, you know, you guys are back-to-back national champions. Did it feel any different? I don't want to say any less exciting because I feel like that's a dumb question, but how did it feel different than the 2010 national championship, if at all?
You know, there was a different feel because what we did in 2010 was kind of our first thing we've ever done. So there's definitely excitement on both sides, and it wasn't far off, you know. But for me, it was more, you know, I was kind of, you know, a little emotions hit me because I just realized that it was over, you know. Like, I mean, shoot, to go out on top is the best way to go. But still, I never forget sitting on the standing on the field interviewing and just having an interview, just going over and thinking about my freshman year, my sophomore year, and just the struggles I had, you know, on the field and to where I was at, and, you know, at that moment. man, it was tough for me to not hold back some tears because, it was just unbelievable to go back and think, from how far we've all come and how far I came it definitely was a way more emotional moment. I feel like for me the second year.